What's going on, guys? This is Derek at Derek's Dead Talks official podcast. I'm here with my good friend Jacob at Peak Fandom's channel, here to talk about the Ones Who Live season finale. Jacob, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, Derek. How about yourself?
I'm great, man. I'm glad to see, first of all, how impressive it is at all the weight you've lost, man. You really should be proud. I know that's hard and you look like a different person compared to the last time we recorded. So I'm very proud of you there. I noticed, the content's kind of slowed down from you, but I just wanted to know, where can everybody follow you? What do you have any plans for the future with your content? And what do you got going on right now, content wise?
Well, first off, thank you for the compliment. I've definitely have been putting in the work, and as you said, I've been slowed down on content, so that's definitely where my focus has been these past couple months. But everyone can follow me on every platform, YouTube, Instagram, Twitch, TikTok, Twitter, at Peak Fandom. So my name should be like in the bottom left. It's really just that at on everything.
Cool, man. Well, yeah, I can't fault you because the results are there. So if it's all I need to do is take a break from content to lose 100 pounds, man, who knows? But before we get into anything else here, I do want to give a brief shout out to the sponsor of this video, SoBet. SoBet is a platform I've worked with for a very long time. If you love sports betting, things like that, this is basically a social media outlet for some of the best sports bettors and parlay builders in the world. I use it daily. It's helped me stay profitable this entire NBA season. So I have a link in my link tree. If you'd like to go subscribe, use code DBT, and you will see these picks every single day from every single sport all across the world. SoBet, it's the purple logo. You can't miss it. And thank you for sponsoring this video. Now, Jacob, obviously I have you here for a reason today. So let's get you going. I just want to know your overall thoughts on the Ones Who Live season/series finale and what you scored it out of 100, what you liked, what you didn't like, all that good stuff.
You want my rating specifically on the last episode?
Specifically the last episode, yes.
Okay. So okay, well, as you already know, I loved the episode. I thought for the story that they set up throughout episodes 1 through 5, if you're not considering the whole universe as a whole, I think they concluded it very well. I was really surprised with the ending, wrapping up the CRM and everything, but I welcome it because I think all great things need to have an ending. So I think that within the next 5 years or so, obviously, like I don't have a specific timeline, that the Walking Dead universe is going to come to an end. And if you asked me a week ago if I ever saw that ending in sight, I would say, hell no. But I definitely see it now. And I think a lot of people like you are upset about that. And I honestly, even though I don't agree with it, I understand why you're frustrated. But I don't know. I was really satisfied with it. Sure, some things were rushed, and sure, some things could have been a little bit better. But like I said, for what they were setting up, I think it was a great conclusion. And out of 100, I would give it an 85.
Okay, and I know your scoring system's a little bit harsher than mine. So for an 85 for you is like a 95 for me. But anyway, um specifically what I want to mention about what you said, because obviously all my followers know at this point how I felt about the finale. You know how I felt about the finale. And I've pretty much talked it to death. But I do want to say, you talked about how everything must end and the finale, they really wrapped up the CRM thing. Do you agree with me in a sense that it was not marketed that way and that it that could be a reason why people aren't receiving it as well? Because they didn't even in the promos leading up to the final episode, it never said like the end of Rick and Michonne or the end of this, they don't have to say the end of the CRM arc, but they even switched up the wording to where it was no longer a limited series listed on their page. Like they made a lot of hints to make it feel like it was going to stay open-ended to where they were going to be able to continue. So do you feel like there was some false marketing there, or do you feel like it was good enough to set up what they did?
I definitely think the marketing is questionable, but that's nothing new with AMC. They never, I mean, we could go on about this, the time slots for Daryl Dixon, Fear, The Walking Dead season 8. It's just we never find out stuff until the last minute. So I think their reasoning with that is if they don't say whether it's the ending or not, that created a lot of discourse. It was like trending. Is this going to get a season 2 and stuff? If you go on Twitter, I'm on Twitter a lot. I see a bunch of people like quote tweeting their like the official account saying like, does this mean season 2? So like I think they did it on purpose to create more traction, to maybe get more viewership, to see if it was going to be the ending, if it was going to get a season 2. But because if you would have asked me after episode 5, I would have said it was 100%. Maybe not a season 2 of The Ones Who Live, but it was definitely going to be continued. That's why I was really surprised within the next 45 minutes of episode 6, it was just boom, done. I was so surprised by that. But yeah, going back to what you said about the marketing, it was definitely questionable. They should have stuck to their guns about saying like this is the end, and that would have cleared up a lot of confusion. So I do see why you're upset about that.
Well, and I think also when we look at the other reunions that need to happen with Rick, um, they don't. I feel like maybe they didn't want to say the end and then people not watch the other shows because they think there's not going to be a reunion there, and that's why they didn't want to kill the characters either. But I think that's a big part of it. I don't really know what they were going for during this marketing, the whole marketing of The Ones Who Live. I don't really know what they were going for because they know that viewers were expecting a season 2, and they're very aware of the lore that's been built up with the CRM, with Major General Beale, all of the unanswered questions that we got. Nick Clarking made a really like a post of 4 pictures or whatever, and those are 4 things that never got addressed, that probably never will now. And they're aware of that.
Before I forget, I have something very interesting about one of those points that I want to talk about.
Go ahead.
But so one of those you're referring to, like he the 4 things he tweeted, like Silas, Mason Beale, which is Beale's son,
Morgan and the Triple P
and
card.
yeah. So one of those is obviously Mason Beale, and this is spoilers for the comics for whoever hasn't read them. But Rick actually like dies near the end of the Walking Dead series because it's 193 issues, and he dies in issue 192. So you could kind of say it ends with Rick dying. But I was kind of piecing together, what if the TV show Rick still gets his comic book death, but like at the end of the universe? So what if Mason Beale tracks down Rick and kills him like in the exact same way and everything, for jealousy of killing his dad? And also Beale was saying that he was going to be the next leader of the CRM, and that's pretty much exactly what happens is in the comics. Rick dies at the Commonwealth, and he pretty much takes over the Commonwealth like that. Like he gives this speech and he says, "We are not the Walking Dead," and all the Commonwealthers pretty much look up to Rick and idolize him. And so right after that moment, everything changes just like that. And that actually reminded me a lot about how Beale was saying to Rick, oh, you're this great leader. You could have left, but you came back. Like he was putting so much faith into Rick in that moment. And obviously, no one else is going to ever know that unless if Rick tells the story. But obviously, he probably would, because him and Michonne went back to the Civic Republic and told everyone the details about what the CRM was doing. So I kind of think, I don't think this should necessarily happen, but I could see it happening if, like, in the reunion show or the ending series, whatever it's going to be, movie, whatever, Rick still getting his death and the universe ending with Rick Grimes dying by the hands of Mason Beale.
I like that theory, and honestly, that's the first time I've heard it, and I do really like that. I think that would be such a great way to take the story with Beale and all that. I think that would be amazing. My problem with it, and I think a lot of the fans' problem with a lot of the universe right now, Walking Dead universe right now, is we're coming up with these theories and things that would make perfect sense if they did happen, and different explanations for them. And it seems like The Walking Dead's not addressing almost any of those things. And I think that The Ones Who Live was supposed to be the precipice of getting some answers for these things, and it didn't happen. I think that's why a lot of fans are bitter. And you said something about it to me where you're like, I think a lot of people expected more than what was going to happen, more than what we got at face value. And that led to them disliking the episode more. And I don't disagree with that. I think that's true. But I also think it's important that they do address those things. And if you're not going to address it, don't say that you are. Don't tease it. Don't foreshadow it. Don't say that you're going to address it and then not address it. That's what was so frustrating about the finale, because Gimple made that joke about talking about the triple P card very soon, quote unquote. We see the triple P thing on the whiteboard, all that doesn't get answered at all, right? We hear about the returning character coming back. We get Gabe. That's great. But the Morgan Jones setup was perfect. It was perfect for him to come on in some way. It was perfect, and it didn't happen, right? All those things, just all of it collectively. The Cure stuff during World Beyond, right, where they're kind of, the CRM's really focused on that. That was something that a lot of the fan base was behind for a long time, is that the CRM's main focus is to try to find a cure and use test subjects if they have to. And that all basically just got swept under the rug in seconds. I think that is what really upset fans, because they're like, they've had all this buildup and all these different theories and all this different way to talk about it, and enough hinting and foreshadowing from the creating team for them to fully believe it. And then it doesn't happen. It's hard to have a good episode and really enjoy it when your expectations are there and the writers are the one that put them there, you know?
I 100% see what you're saying. But I mean, stuff like this, that's nothing new though, with storylines getting shelved. Like, I mean, I know this is one of the things you're referring to, but PPP has been what, 7, 8 years that hasn't been answered. But one of the ones that stuck out to my head was like I know how much you hate it, but the Fear season 8 storyline with the cure that went absolutely nowhere, because
Yeah.
Padre was looking for a cure and stuff. So I honestly thought they were going to tie that into the CRM, like, since we see in World Beyond they're looking for a cure, but that didn't happen. But I think it's a little bit, I can understand like feeling like iffy about all this stuff getting resolved, but I think it's a little bit too soon to say this stuff getting resolved, because like I said, we still have multiple things in the universe coming out. Like, we have probably at least 5 seasons, if not more, of the universe left, guaranteed, which is Daryl season 2, 3, Dead City season 2, 3, probably, it's not confirmed, and then the reunion season. So that's at least 5 more seasons, at least, at the very least. So I wouldn't say that all this stuff just never gets resolved. I mean, it seems like that for now, but there may be a plan, because the wording with Gimple in that interview with Brandon Davis, he said that story, or with the PPP, he said it's on a shelf. He didn't say, he could have worded it better, but I remember him specifically saying that it's on a shelf. So I think that means that he does have a plan for it. It's just that, and whenever he says soon, I mean, maybe we'll see that in Daryl season 2, and that goes along with your theory of it, Paris being included. But who knows?
I still think that theory has a shot at being true, by the way. I still do. But I think you mentioned something about how the Padre storyline with the cure kind of ties into the CRM and stuff. And I wanted to get into that because, yes, I think that was something that should have happened. But I think all of these different groups that we're kind of seeing, it's been like this for a long time now, since basically like the I'd say the Reaper arc on the Walking Dead main show. That every group we met, in some way, it kind of felt like they could tie into the CRM. Madame Janae and her people, right? That's a perfect example. Even the Croat at first, I remember seeing some people talk about that, but obviously the timeline thing was a mess and it didn't really make sense.
Right.
And then the cure stuff with Padre and all of that. At first, when I was talking about the triple P theory, Padre was one of the P's, and that's what I was kind of going with. And they never tied that in either. And I feel like they kind of need to, because that's what one of the number one complaints for a lot of fans right now is these shows feel so separate. The timeline feels so messed up. The CRM doesn't like that's what I don't agree with that like wholeheartedly, but I do see that's the number one complaint from viewers right now about these other shows and the new ones. And I wish that they would have done something to just tie the CRM to another group, any of them, whether it's the Commonwealth, Padre, and any of that. It would have been perfect. I think it would have really satisfied people because now they've teased the CRM on 3 different shows and it's all over now. It feels all over now. And we never really got that, we never really got that thing that was the purpose of the CRM. It was the perfect connecting point. That was what they had built up to, and it could have connected all of these shows beautifully, and they never did it. And I don't know if they will in the future. Maybe they will, but I just felt like there's no better way to do it than on The Ones Who Live with Rick and Michonne. It would have been a perfect way to do it. And I guess I just don't understand why they didn't.
I see what you're saying. I think with a lot of the stuff you were saying, like, oh, there's a bunch of groups connected to the CRM and we never saw that. I don't think we ever will see it. And I can understand why you're frustrated, but I definitely think it still happened and it's still canon that they were connected because in the echelon briefing, Beal, says we have spies all over the country and we have want all these resources for ourselves. And we literally see footage from all the shows. We see footage from World Beyond. We see footage from Tanktown, from Fear. We see the Commonwealth train. So that's why I was kind of talking with you in your live about how that was basically confirmation that Lance Hornsby was a spy for the CRM because and I actually prefer that writing rather than just saying like, oh yeah, this guy from this guy in the Commonwealth, it's a community in Ohio. Rather than them having to lay it out like that, I like the non-specific, just like overview of it because it's in my mind at least it's basically confirmation without having to say that, and I think that's honestly better writing than having to outright say it and spiel it out for your audience. Because as soon as that episode was over, I'm in this group chat on Instagram and we always talk about the episodes and stuff. We were like, oh, Lance is a spy. We instantly picked that up. And I just thought that was a really cool revelation.
I'm glad they did that, and I think that it would make sense for Lance to be a spy because of things he's talked about, which would have meant that Pamela probably knew about the CRM to some extent because that's why he kind of threatened, like, what did he say exactly? He was like, oh, that
I
might
actually
upset
I don't agree with
factors.
that. I don't agree with that to an extent because Beale specifically said the spies are used, like he named lots of things, but one of the things were to influence the politics of the communities. So I don't think Lance ever outright told Pamela, but like he was basically used to manipulate her and her decisions and stuff. Because if you think about it, before our group came into the Commonwealth and the CRM operates in very similar fashion. That they have a strong military and their people don't have complete freedom. They have to work for what they have. So I definitely think you can definitely see the CRM's input into Lance, which he is obviously high up. So he has input over the community and Pamela. So I don't necessarily think Pamela herself knew, but he probably, like we saw what you just said, that quote where he said that there's alliances that would go down if he died or whatever. He probably always held that over her head.
I wish that we could have had it explored more back, whether it was on the main show or now, because I would have loved to hear more about it. It's nice to be able to kind of pick up the context clues and like apply it, and I like that, but it would have been nice to actually like hear it said outright because we really haven't had it much up to now. And that's kind of my issue with the CRM arc as a whole is like it just never really delivered on what it was supposed to. It didn't feel like it ever delivered in any avenue because the Cure storyline, it never delivered. Tying to the other groups, yeah, it's inferred, but it's never really delivered. They never even really felt like a big bad group, like ever. And they're supposed to be like the biggest, baddest group. At least that's how it was portrayed.
Mm-hmm.
And for it all to just be taken out by Rick and Michonne. So, and I won't even get into that stuff, but like for them to take him out so easily and they leave all this gas unattended and let Rick and Michonne go in there and just, oh my gosh. And then they survive the gas. I just really didn't like that whole part right there because the CRM got completely wiped out for pretty much no reason, pretty much super easily. And then the gas is left alone. Doesn't make any sense. We don't hear anything from the huge summit that they have going on. They survive the most crazy stuff that they shouldn't have survived. And I think that was just like me nitpicking, but because I was so upset about how they handled the CRM arc that all the other little things felt more serious to me.
I can see that. No, I definitely see your point. I just don't agree with it 100%. But I definitely see like what you're saying and why you're frustrated and what a lot of people are frustrated about.
Do you think it was it? But you can truthfully say that you believe it was a proper finale.
I was actually just thinking about this, like going back to like the marketing stuff. Yes, I do think it was a proper finale for what Scott Gimple, Denai Guerrera, and Andrew Lincoln promised. Those three, for what they promised, absolutely. But from AMC's standpoint, no, because AMC is just looking at it to, garner as many viewers and try to make the profit off of it as much as they could. Because if you ever hear what Denai was saying about like in the writers' room and stuff, AMC wanted a completely different show. They didn't want Rick and Michonne to reunite until like episode 4 and 5. So the show would have looked completely different if they were in control. But basically, my point is for what they promised that it was going to be an epic love story set in the Walking Dead universe and a story about Rick and Michonne. So the CRM, as much as it upsets a lot of people, the CRM was the backdrop for this story. It was a love story. And in terms of the love story and then getting back to their kids, absolutely it delivered.
I think I agree with you on that. I think I agree with that part of it. I do. I think as far as Rick and Michonne, their relationship and their love story goes, I think that it was done pretty well. I wish that they could have either used something else other than the CRM and still had that available as a plot line going forward, or that they hadn't done so much build up to it. Because I think that's what really frustrates people is that we've seen little CRM teases, we've heard things about them. They're a really interesting, intricate, brutal group, and it just didn't deliver on screen to me throughout the finale, especially. Prior to that, like in episode 1, it did kind of feel that way, but then when we get to the finale, it's like they feel like even weaker than the Saviors or the Whisperers. They felt even weaker than that. And that really upset me, just like how that all went. I wish that they hadn't built up so much to it. Really glad we got the reunion, though. It would have been nice to see maybe a post-credit scene of some kind with another character, like we were kind of talking about. Whether it's just like a Morgan tease, maybe he sees and he's way back in the bushes and he sees them all reuniting. I don't know. It's just an idea, but I would love to see something like that. And I wish that they would give us an actual answer about what they're planning to do. I get it; they're probably working out contract stuff, but I wish that they would just say directly, like, "Hey, we're gonna do a season 2. We're gonna talk it out and figure out what we're gonna do, or we're not gonna do a season 2. This was the end. Maybe in the crossover project or whatever, we'll see Rick and Michonne again because now." It's all left open, wide open. And I think that it's hard to base your opinion completely on the finale when you have no idea what's going to come next. Kind of like with Dead City, right? The way Dead City's finale ended. I would have disliked it so much more if they hadn't announced the season 2 immediately after. Like on the episode, it's like, we'll be back for season 2 or whatever. The finale would have felt terrible if it wasn't for that part. But that made me enjoy Dead City more because I knew there was some kind of plan for the future and I knew what route it was going to go. And since I don't have that with the Ones Who Live or Rick and Michonne or any of them, it's hard for me to accept it. I think that's a big problem for me. It's hard for me to accept that.
Like I see completely what you're saying. I don't think they announced season. I don't think there was like a clip announcing season 2 right after the Dead City finale. I think they like announced it like the next week at like some con or something. I may be misremembering though. But speaking of cons, I wanted to say we're probably going to get a ton of answers at San Diego Comic Con this year. That always takes place in July, and that's where all the huge franchises and companies drop their big news. So I predict that we're going to get confirmation for the reunion series in July. I 100% think it's going to happen. And that's probably when they'll address when we're going to see Rick and Michonne if we're getting a season 2. But when you're saying that you want answers, I just say you're going to have to be patient a little bit and wait for July because, like I said, I think they're waiting for San Diego to announce everything.
Yeah, I mean, and that's where they announced The Ones Who Live back in the day, right? That's when
Yeah, in
they announced that it's
2022.
yeah, San Diego Comic Con's where they announced that. So yeah, hopefully they really get into that stuff and kind of tell us what the plan is for all the shows, hopefully because I think the last one they told us about Daryl Dixon season 2, they told us about that was really I guess something about Fear, right? They told
That's
us
when they
about
announced Troy. They
yeah, they
officially
announced
announced
Troy.
Troy. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they didn't talk about Tales of the Walking Dead and all that stuff like I wanted them to, but
I'm
whatever.
telling you now, I don't think Tails is ever coming
It's
back.
coming.
I want it to, but I don't think it is.
I remember
I think
watching it live and I don't know. I found some joy in it. I don't
no,
know.
I really liked it, but I guess we're the only people that like it because everyone I talk to is just like they act like they never want to see another episode of that ever again. I think the potential is 100% there. If you want to milk something out, that's the way to do it because you can literally tell a story anywhere in the world, anywhere in the timeline. Like that's perfect. Like there's
Yeah.
really infinite possibilities.
I think if they wrap up the rest of the characters, that's when they're like, okay, Tales of the Walking Dead season 2 is out. If the Daryl story ends, Carol's everybody's is over. I think that's what they would do because I don't see them stopping anytime soon. I don't like how long the gaps have been between shows lately. Either, which I get it. It takes time to film a huge project like this. It's just like the waiting for only 6 episodes. I don't think that format's working for The Walking Dead right now.
I disagree with that completely.
Why?
I think it's exactly what it needs because there's like no filler. There's no filler whatsoever with like Dead City, Daryl Dixon, the ones who live. And you could argue that it leads to rushed things, which I kind of have a slightly different opinion on with the ones who live than Daryl Dixon and Dead City. Because basically how I look at it is the ones who live was a mandatory story to tell. That has been promised for like almost 6 years. Dead City and Daryl Dixon is basically just like bonus content. So whenever you're providing bonus content, I think it's good to just like, have the main story. You don't really need to get into like the background characters and like side characters that much, but I don't know. I just prefer the 6 episode format. I definitely think the Walking Dead universe is doing a much better job of it than the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That's for sure.
I think I haven't watched those, but I've heard that same thing. But for me, man, I think 8 episodes has to be a minimum. I can't help but think that The Ones Who Live would have been better if it would have gotten 2 more episodes. And filler or not, I mean, I think more it would have given more time for the things that I'm upset about the finale. I think it would have helped, those things. You could have even done like a cool like I heard Movie Idol talk about this, but like an episode on Beal taking over the CRM and stuff like that. That would have been pretty cool. Or Okafor and that stuff, and kind of bring his character, show a little bit more of that dynamic. I think that would have been really neat too. Probably a little more frustrating once they get killed off because it's like, okay, well, what was the point? But still, I think it really could have benefited from that. Daryl Dixon, I think they executed the 6 episode format perfectly. And Dead City also, I think, could have used another episode or so. But I just think even more so than that, it's just that waiting so long, like waiting as long as we do for new Walking Dead content sometimes, 6 episodes, it feels like it's the blink of an eye and it's gone. That's the part of it that I'm not like crazy about. I would hope that they could do another, like they used to do 16 episode runs, man. Like they did a 24 episode run. Like you guys can do 8, you can do 10. Like I don't understand why they're shying away from that. I don't get it.
You mentioned the 16 episodes and the 24 episode run. Season 11 is my least favorite season of the main show. And like, I just feel like the first 8 episodes of the Reapers are just completely unnecessary. Like there was no
I
point
agree.
to that besides the answer where Maggie has been since season 9 episode 5. But so I disagree with that, that more equals better fleshed out. I know you're not necessarily saying
Yeah.
that, but I definitely think the ones who live could have benefited from more episodes. Like I don't know if I would say like 10 or 12, but like at least like 8, but maybe 10. I don't know. I don't know how I would structure it, but there's also moments like episode 5. I really like episode 5.
Me
I
too.
really like all the episodes, but episode 5, in my opinion, was the weakest because it just felt like so slow. I was like, does this need to be like a whole episode of just Jadis chasing them? I don't know, but that's my opinion.
Some people say that. I actually scored episode 5 pretty high on my list here, and I'm gonna make a full video about this, and hopefully we get to the panel stuff. I'm gonna make a whole video on this, but my for reference on my scoring system, okay, the finale episode is a 70 out of 100 for me, which is lower than it's the lowest episode for me by
Mm-hmm.
18 points. So the next place to it is an 88. That's how big of a drop off that it was to me.
What's the second least episode for you?
The second least episode, gosh, you're probably not going to like me for this one because some people seem to love it, but episode 3.
I can see that. It's actually I think that's actually my third favorite episode. I have a really hot take for episode 4 compared to everyone. I really liked episode 4 and I thought it was necessary. Like when I say I don't like if it's at the bottom of near the bottom of the list, that's not me saying I hated it at all, but like I don't like episode 4 was definitely necessary because of all the dialogue and emotional moments and stuff. But from the way the screeners were hyping it up, I don't know. I just expected something like so much more. Like I expected like more stuff with the CRM and stuff, which I do
Me
think it
too.
was completely necessary episode and dialogue. But I think my ranking for the episodes, my favorite is episode 1. I think episode
Mm,
1 is like an actual near perfect
I
episode.
agree. I have it at a perfect. I have it at 100. So yeah, I'm with you.
Episode This is where you completely disagree with me, but I actually think episode 6 is the second best. And
Yeah, yeah.
and then I think episode 3 might be my third favorite. Then after that is episode 2 and then 4 and 5.
5 at the bottom.
Yeah.
Dang, dang. Yeah, we're a lot different on that. I've got one. My favorite one being episode 1. And then I actually have episode 5 at second. I thought it was done really well. I liked Gabriel coming back. I liked Jadis's death. I thought it was done just incredibly.
Oh, it
And
was done really well. It's just compared to everything else, I just find it the weakest, I guess.
I may need to rewatch. I may need to watch it and watch them again because then after that I have episode 4 at third at a 91. And yes, I do agree with you, and that's where it lost the 9 points to me. But the for a dialogue and acting talent based episode, just you couldn't ask for more. It was beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have episode 2 and then 3 and then the finale. That's how I've got it. So yeah, episode 2, I liked it a lot more upon first watch. And then upon second watch, I was like, maybe it is just a league behind a majority of the episodes. I was hoping for another perfect episode in the finale, obviously, but yeah, I that's where I'm at with those. There honestly, prior to the finale, there wasn't a bad one for me.
Mm-hmm.
Truthfully, there wasn't a bad one.
So do you
Um,
actually think the finale is a bad episode?
I gotta say, I don't want to use the word bad because I think if I'm saying a bad episode, I would be talking about like, Fear season 8 or some of the stuff that I really, really, really don't
Right.
like. I think it would be a bad episode if it wasn't Rick and Michonne as the main characters on it. I think they drove it up for me. I would definitely say it was a below average episode. It was on par for me with like a Walking Dead season 7 episode, where it's like I like it because of who's there. I like it because of how we got the reunion and little things like that that I liked. But just the things that brought it down for me really brought it down for me. And I also always look at my initial reaction, right? That's why I do those initial thoughts videos every time an episode comes out, because I like that's when I feel like my feelings are the most true. It's like this is how the episode made me feel. And
Right.
this episode, the first feeling I had was disappointment. And so I think, to answer your question, I don't think it was a bad episode. I don't think it was a good episode. I think it was a slightly below average episode. Yes.
Okay. That's interesting. That something that keeps going through my head that I keep saying I don't want to forget to ask you. Leading up to the series, you kept saying that you were really um had mixed feelings about Rick losing his hand, because even though it wasn't revealed until episode 1 officially, we all knew he was losing his hand
Mm.
because of the trailer shots and stuff. So now seeing the 6 episodes and how it fit into the story of him being that determined to get home, and he cuts off his own hand, and even that doesn't work. How do you feel about it, and like how it was executed and everything?
I'm glad you asked that, because I haven't really talked about that much since it happened. But you know, I think they did it. I think they did it almost perfectly. Honestly, I was very more open to it once I saw what happened. I think that it was a good way to show how brutal the CRM is right from the jump, and how determined Rick was, like you said, and what he had to go through. Um, I wish it wasn't like something that was permanent. Like that's the only thing. It's like when you make a decision like that, it's a permanent decision. Like there's no going back. Rick's not gonna have a hand anymore. That's the end of it. And that part of it, I'm still kind of like you should have done this way sooner if this was your plan. But in terms of how it fit into the story, I think they did it perfectly. If I had to choose a way for it to happen, it was done perfectly. And the scene was brutal, and it was a great scene. So yeah, I think with what they could have done, I think they did it well. I think it also would have been good for my theory of Major General Beale taking that sword and cutting his hand off. I think that
Mm-hmm.
might have been just a little bit better, because it would have built up Beale more, and I probably would have liked the villain more if they would have done something like that. And they've always done that with others in the past. The Pike scene, the lineup, taking out all his own people with the governor. They've always done that with the villains, like had that big brutal moment, and we didn't get that with Beale. That would have been a great way to go. Slice off his hand with the sword after he tries to run away. That's his punishment. Next time you're going to cut off the other hand. And I don't know. That would have been cool, but I do really love the way that they did it. I think that they executed it well. And truthfully, I take back what I said. I mean, they did it in the right way.
With Beal cutting off his hand, that's actually how I wanted him to lose the hand too. And I wanted it to be like a 1-to-1 shot of the governor doing it in the comics. That would have been so cool. But looking back, I'm so glad they didn't do that, because that's not who Beal was at all. And I know like that may like for all the people who may be frustrated, that may be exactly why you're frustrated, because Beal wasn't this big, old scary villain. So I'm glad that he didn't do it, and I'm glad it was Rick's own choice, because I think that drives the story that they were telling, that's how determined he was to get home, that he was going to make, like you said, a permanent decision, and cutting off his hand, and the pain and everything that goes with it. It was really executed well. Have you seen the cut scene from the finale where the picnic and he has his comic accurate hand?
I did see that.
Do you wish we saw that?
I do. I think that's another thing to get into briefly. The reunion should have been a little bit longer. I think we should have got maybe just another scene of some kind. I think. I mean, I didn't hate the reunion anyway. I mean, I'm not one of the people that's like, oh, this was terrible. RJ ruined it. I'm not. I don't feel that way about it. I think it was done exactly how it needed to be. The only thing I would have changed is maybe add some more length and show a picnic like that. Show something like that where we get a little more. I heard somebody, I think it was like a podcaster, say like show Rick and RJ fishing, on the dock or something like. And it's as dumb as
Mm-hmm.
it sounds. It's like that would have been cool. And the picnic was a good way to go with it. And the comic accurate hand, the only problem I have with it is it seems like a downgrade from his other prosthetic. That's the only thing I didn't really like in terms of quality. So it's like, why would you do that? But I get
Well,
it.
if you think about what like Rick's going through, him leaving that hand on the table where Thorn sees it, and that's actually like what kind of like gives it away. I love the way that's done because that's kind of Rick like giving like saying he's completely done with the CRM, him leaving that hand on the table. So since the CRM and Okafor is the one that gave him that hand, he doesn't want to be reminded of that life of him being trapped away or away from his family for like 8 years. So I really like the way that's done. Um, and I mean, in terms of like everyday use at the Commonwealth, I don't think it's a downgrade because it's like a claw and he can grab stuff and stuff.
Yeah,
And it's also
that's
comic
true.
accurate.
Love that, by the way. I love that it's comic accurate. I really do. You know, that part of it, I'm starting to really appreciate the comics more and them do things like that. So,
Mm-hmm.
I got one more question for you here before we wrap up because we're about at 45 minutes. So I do want to get wrapped up soon. But so we're talking about kind of like the future of The Walking Dead a lot. And what if you were the writer and you got to have it your way, right? What are we doing with the next, 5, 6 years? How long are you going with Dead City? How long are you going with Daryl Dixon? And what would be your plan for either a crossover series or extending the ones who live? So, like, if you were the writer, what does your next 5 years of The Walking Dead content look like?
I'm really glad you asked that because I kind of have this plan in my head. So, um, like we were saying, or like I said earlier, I basically see 5 guaranteed more seasons of the Walking Dead universe at the very least. We already know we're getting 2 more seasons of Daryl Dixon. So let me just start off by saying I think the big bad, I would have had it be the CRM, but obviously that's not going to happen anymore. So I think we need to go with the French and Madame Genet and the variants. And I actually think that's kind of cool because the big bad of the universe is going to be the zombies. It's going to be the variants, which goes back all the way to the first season of the whole universe in Atlanta. Um, which I know a lot of people are like, oh, they're not the same. Those are just Darabont walkers. But I know I kind of think that they're kind of going for that they're the same uh, variants because in one interview or something, Greg Nicotero said, "Oh, we're not changing the rules. This has already been established in season 1 of the show." Whenever he was talking about the season 11 variants, so have the big bad be the French. Have them maybe still have some connections with the CRM, and that got destroyed. And I think it would be cool to see like some CRM soldiers like kind of rise up and like uh you know have conflict between like the new alliances and stuff and like oh we still support Beale and stuff because that could actually lead to Mason Beale killing Rick like I said, which I definitely think you should make a video about because I think that's a good theory.
It
But
is.
so season 2 of Daryl Dixon is the next thing we're getting, the Book of Carol. Then we're getting Dead City season 2. Then I think Daryl Dixon season 3 will obviously be next, and I think it should be titled Daryl Dixon: The Final Chapter if they're going with the book theme. Then Dead City season 3, and I think after 3 seasons of each shows, have those shows be done. And then after that, have anywhere from 12 to 16 episodes of the final reunion of everyone together and it'd be the final conflict. But going back to Dead City, I actually think Dead City is going to be like an epilogue of sorts because in Dead City we know that the hilltop doesn't exist anymore because Maggie said like oh the crop struggled, that's why we moved to the bricks. So I actually think something's going to happen in the reunion project, whatever you want to call it, to lead to that. And we know that Dead City takes place like anywhere from 3 to 5 years into the future. So it's basically on its like whenever you do your timeline videos, it's always way to the right. So they have a lot of story they can tell to fill in that blank. So I think Daryl Dixon is 100% going to be like the main series going forward in terms of expanding the universe and stuff. And it's all going to build to um this the reunion.
I like that format. I do. After the reunion, is there anything or is that it?
I really like. There's probably gonna be something else, but I just don't know what they would do unless if they're gonna do more tail seasons, maybe a fear spinoff. But there's no justification for a fear spinoff. But and I don't think like there's enough want for like a
Agree.
Madison and Alicia spinoff. But I mean, they could do that if they wanted to. I don't know.
So where I'm at, just to like quickly go over what I kind of view, because we're very similar in that actually. Because yeah, I think we do Book of Carol, we do Dead City 2. Um, my perfect world, we do a Ones Who Live season 2. Um, maybe with I think Morgan needs to be brought into the story somehow, and I think that would be a good place to begin there because obviously we're going to see Rick and they're going to be home, so they're going to have to do something. Obviously, it can't be in Alexandria, but they have to do something where everyone's together. So Morgan will be involved in some way, and that would be a good way to include him. And I don't even know if they'd call it the Ones Who Live, but something that kind of plays on that story where Morgan is a part of it, and I think that'd be the best way to do it. So we get another 6 episode run like that. Okay. Then we get Daryl Dixon 3. Then we get Dead City 3. Um, then we'd get the reunion crossover series of some kind that would wrap up those 3 stories. After that, I think they will do I want it? But I think they will do the more Tales of the Walking Dead and The Walking Dead Gen Z. That's my title. But it's the kids grown up. It's the next generation show. They try that for a couple seasons. It probably doesn't do well. And then unfortunately, I think that's close to where we're at the end. But that's kind of what I think it is going to look like. Obviously, I'd probably drop the Gen Z show, but I think it probably would happen. I just think there's got to be another 6 episodes of some kind with Rick and Michonne and or Morgan.
Well, that's what the reunion show would be.
But if you're reuniting everybody though, the focus isn't going to be on just those characters.
So
That's
you
going to
want
be
it to you want it to specifically be on Morgan, Michonne, and Rick.
yes. Yes.
Is there a reason why, like
Just
specifically?
I just think that Morgan is such an important character and the way that he was wrote off of Fear the Walking Dead, I think that they set it up to where he kind of has to be. I feel like he has to be. He's out looking for Rick. It's important that his character is in some way incorporated on the story, and I think that there's enough to tell there of Morgan. And you said something about a Fear spinoff, right? It would be a good way to kind of incorporate a Fear spinoff without actually having to do it. You can show Mo and Morgan and their journey to try to find Rick and all of them. Maybe they end up finding the CRM too, and they find them, and we see a similar, I don't know, something like that would be cool. But I think he's definitely worthy of it, and I think his character is important enough where something like that should happen.
He's 100% worthy of it, and he's 100% important. But I think that all of these character stories are done. Like I think Rick and Michonne's story is done. I think Morgan's story is done. I think the only thing that needs to happen is the reunion. And then if they're going to have a conflict with the French or the variants or whatever, sure, that's a story, but it's not a story to their characters. So in terms of their characters, their story is done. The final Fear the Walking Dead season 8A, that's the end of Morgan's story in my eyes. Like, especially like episodes 4, 5, and 6 of season 8, that's all about Morgan's ending. He
Yeah.
goes back to King County. Grace dies, and Mo runs away in episode 5. And then episode 6, he sees Red for the last time. And I mean, it's Fear the Walking Dead writing, but nevertheless, he comes to terms with him seeing Red, and that's what causes him to leave the Fear group and search for Rick.
By the
So
way, I
that's
love those episodes. Just want to say that those are the episodes in season 8 that I really loved. I remember talking to you about them after they aired every single time. And I loved those episodes. Just wanted to say that 8B is where I have the issues. But yeah.
I love those episodes too. But yeah, so in terms of like their character stories, I think they're done. Like that's why I have the finale of The Ones Who Live ranked so high, is because like I think that is the perfect ending for Rick and Michonne. Like obviously we're going to see them again, but that is 100% like the end of Rick Grimes' story right there.
Well, I think, I do appreciate you sharing me your perspective because we talked about it, but not fully. And I'm glad you
Mm-hmm.
did because it does kind of shift my viewpoint of it a little bit. Um, and I'm sure with time and seeing what they're gonna do, I'm sure that I'll feel differently about the Ones Who Live finale afterwards. Because there's been other episodes in The Walking Dead that maybe I didn't love right away, but then when I saw the end result of something else, it made me like it more. A good example would be the Beth and Daryl episode from way back in the day. Didn't appreciate it as much at face value, but then later on, seeing how much Daryl's characters progressed and how he kind of like has these really close relationships with different people and treats them like a father figure, and I appreciate it more now. That's just an example, but I mean, like I like that episode more now, seeing that softer side of Daryl in the later seasons. So I'm thinking that what we see in the future may shift my mind there. And I do greatly appreciate you coming on and talking to me about it and everything. I always love having you on. We've obviously been friends for years now. We've talked about probably every episode since season 10. Um,
It
so
was like the
season
beginning of season 11 because I remember seeing you. I think one of your first videos I saw was like season 11, episode 4 review. And then a little bit after that, it's when we started like actually talking. So, but yeah,
Yeah, man.
I appreciate you having me. It's always a great time.
For sure, man. And we'll definitely talk more soon. I do want you guys that are all listening to obviously let me know what you guys thought of the finale. A big thank you to our sponsor, SoBet. Remember, there is a link in my bio and you can check it out in the App Store. Jacob, thank you so much for your time, man. I really do appreciate it. I will have a ton of content coming up soon. And I look forward to it.